One afternoon, when their work was finished at a clothing factory in Salisbury, the employees left to go home. Among them was Gweshu, who was 20 years old and who had come from Katooma to work in Salisbury. Gweshu, who was keen to improve his education, was going on to night school. His route took him past the station, and as usual, he waited to watch the arrival of the evening train, in the hope that he might see one of his friends from home. The train was going on to Katooma, and Gweshu thought that perhaps someone he knew might be on his way home. He looked hopefully along the train as it pulled in, but couldn't see any familiar faces. However, there's always plenty happening at a big railway station, so he stayed for a while to watch. Some travellers were bewildered by the noise and hurry, and one such, an old countryman, stopped a smart city fellow to ask the way to Harare. "I've got important business here. I've no time for you." Not understanding this lack of courtesy, the old man tried again. Gweshu knew the kind of behavior that is often found in towns today, and wasn't surprised when the old man was unsuccessful again. So he decided to go to help, but an African constable had the same idea and got there first. He asked what was wrong, and the old man told him that he didn't know how to get to Harare. "Oh, that's not very difficult." "I didn't know that the police were so ready to help people," thought Gweshu, as he watched the constable carefully guiding the old man. Someone else had been watching this kindly act and decided to ask for help too. "Baba, my ticket wants to go one way and I want to go the other." The man, a fisherman from Lake Nyasa, didn't know how to get round this difficulty, but it was nothing new to the constable. "I'll have to take you along to see my sergeant. I expect he'll be able to fix it up for you." Gweshu watched all this with great interest, and decided to follow to see what happened. The sergeant listened to the constable as he explained the fisherman's problem. "This ticket is for Katooma," he said. "Where does he want to go?" "To Sonoya, Sergeant." Gweshu didn't know that the police could help in so many ways. "Well, we'll take this ticket to the booking office and get it changed for you." As the party moved away, Gweshu noticed two men loafing near the barrier. "I don't like the look of the thought." The first man, Sibabi, watched the police out of sight, and told his follower, Umlandayo, that they could start their business now. Not noticing that Gweshu was watching them, they moved over to a group of men standing talking nearby. Pretending to join in the conversation, Sibabi stole a wallet from a handy pocket and passed it back to Umlandayo, who hid it. Gweshu was amazed. Shortly after the thieves disappeared, the man who had been robbed went off to a food stall, and Gweshu wondered what would happen next. The man asked for some buns. He felt for his wallet, and to his horror found that it had gone. His cries of dismay attracted the attention of an African detective sergeant named Harry and a constable. "Now, what's the trouble?" they asked. "My wallet was in my hip pocket, and it's gone." "How much money was in it?" "The whole of my month's pay." "When did you last feel it in your pocket?" "Just before I came to the station." "Where have you been standing?" "Over there, by the barrier, talking to some other people." As usual, a crowd quickly gathered to watch the fun. Harry looked around to see whether there were any known pickpockets, and as he looked, the crowd began to move away. They were quite ready to enjoy other people's troubles, but didn't want to get involved in any themselves. Seeing that Gweshu stood his ground, Harry went over to him, hoping that he had found a witness. "No, I don't know anything," said Gweshu. "I didn't see anything." Harry looked around, and seeing the expectant crowd, realized that Gweshu wouldn't give him any information while so many people were watching and listening. "I'd like to have a talk to you privately. There are too many people watching us here." Gweshu agreed to go with him, and they moved away round a corner. "Now, what did you see over there?" Gweshu was an honest man, and now that there was no watching crowd, he was ready to describe what he had seen and what the thieves looked like. "That's a great help," said Harry. "I wish everybody helped as much. Will you come with me to the police station and try to identify the thieves in our records?" Gweshu willingly agreed. At the Criminal Investigation Department, Harry took Gweshu into the Criminal Record Office. He told the sergeant in charge that he had brought along a man who had witnessed a pocket-picking, and who thought he might be able to identify the thieves. After hearing Harry's story, the sergeant showed him where to find the album of known pickpockets, and told him to let the witness look at all the photographs. Harry asked Gweshu whether he could recognize either of the thieves. Gweshu couldn't recognize any of the pictures on the first page. He looked carefully at every picture, and on the second page at once pointed to one of them. "That's one of the thieves," he said, "the one that took the wallet out of the man's pocket." "Good," said Harry, and asked Gweshu to try to recognize the accomplice. But Gweshu didn't see a photograph of the second thief in all the rest of the book. He asked Harry the time, and when he learned that it was after the time when his evening lesson started, he asked him if he could go now, as he was already late. Harry showed the sergeant in charge the photograph which Gweshu had recognized, and the sergeant saw that it was Sibabi, an old offender. He told Harry that he would give him a copy of the photograph. Then he instructed him to go out with another detective and try to find Sibabi. Meanwhile, Gweshu hurried away to his evening classes. When he got into the classroom, the lesson had started, and the teacher asked him why he was late. Gweshu explained that he'd been giving some help to the police. He was told to sit down, and the lesson continued. Gweshu tried hard to concentrate on the lesson, but his mind wandered back to the exciting events in which he had been involved. Such excitement had never come his way before. Very soon there was another interruption. This time it was the arrival of a police officer and 2 African sergeants, who were touring night schools giving talks on the police as a career for Africans. The officer explained to the class that he was going to tell them about the conditions of service in the police force, and he gave the sergeants pamphlets to hand around to the class. These pamphlets told them that a police recruit must be of good character, of good physique, have reached standard 4 and be above a certain height. Also, that men of any tribe can join the police. Meanwhile, the officer had written on the blackboard details of the rates and pay and allowances for every rank. He told the class that a policeman today starts off at £5 12 and 6 a month, with 3 quarters and uniforms provided, and he can eventually rise to the rank of Station Sergeant of the CID, earning £19 10 shillings a month, probably with additional allowances for interpreting. Now, for instance, a first-class sergeant with 10 years' service. This man is a first-class sergeant, and he earns £12 a month. He told them that there are certain qualifications which are essential. One of them is that every applicant must be over 5 feet 7 inches in height. He showed the class that the sergeant was well over this minimum height, and he invited those who were interested to come up and see whether they were taller than the mark. Several of the class decided to try their luck. The first man was quite tall, at least 4 inches above the mark. "Well, you wouldn't be turned down on account of your height," said the officer. "Next one, please." But the next man to try his luck was much too small, and he was told cheerfully to wait a while and see if he grew any taller. The next to come along was Gweshu. They could all see at once that he was well over 5 feet 7 inches in height. On the following day, a game of Tsoro was being played near the location. Standing watching and giving free advice to everyone was Sibabe. Harry and the other detective hadn't wasted much time in finding him. They identified him from the photograph and moved in to arrest him. Sibabe tried to bluff his way out of it, but Harry knew that this time he had got all the evidence he needed. A few weeks later, Gweshu was among a number of men wishing to join the police who were waiting to be interviewed by the commandant. An earlier applicant was dealt with, and then it was Gweshu's turn. The sergeant took him immediately to the measuring board so that his height could be checked. "5 feet 11.5 inches, sir." Then the commandant interviewed Gweshu, asking him about his past career. The object of his questions was to discover whether Gweshu was in every respect suitable to be a member of the force. Gweshu answered all his questions readily. Before he could be signed on, he had to undergo a thorough medical examination. Back to the commandant's office, where Gweshu took the oath. He promised to serve his queen and country faithfully. His service life started with drawing his kit at the quartermaster's store. Then all the kit had to be marked. Naturally, it had to be tried on to see how it fitted. Very soon, he made his first acquaintance with the parade ground. His squad was given a lesson in first aid to the injured. There were lectures of all kinds, this one on the definition of theft. It wasn't all work. In off-duty hours, there were various ways of spending the time. But the parade ground was a regular feature, teaching Greshu the discipline of acting in perfect unison with the rest of his squad. Another demonstration showed the squad how to investigate the finding of a dead body. Those who went in for tennis in their time off were often encouraged by the advice of the commandant. Riot drill taught them how to act as a disciplined force if they should be called upon to quell civil disturbances. In the canteen, they could buy all sorts of extras to add variety to their lives. When the tailor fitted him with uniform tunics made to measure, Greshu knew that the passing out parade, which marks the end of the training of recruits, was not far off. Now Greshu's squad did its final drilling in preparation for the parade. A smart squad, as good as any. The great day came, and the Deputy Commissioner arrived to inspect the parade. As he walked down the ranks, he saw that the men were now fit for posting to their stations. All of this squad would be posted to district stations. He spoke to several of the men and stopped to ask Greshu his name and where his home was. Greshu replied smartly, proud of this interest in him. It was to Garamonzi, 25 miles away from Salisbury, that Greshu was first posted. As he took his kit from the truck, the sergeant came to meet him. After he had welcomed him to the station, the sergeant told Greshu that the first thing he must do was to report to the member in charge. The sergeant reported Greshu's arrival to the sub-inspector, who said that he would see him straight away. The sub-inspector told him that he expected him to be a keen and smart member of the detachment, and that his first duty would be a patrol under the supervision of a European constable. Constable Jones came along to check that the camping equipment was properly loaded. Then he told the sergeant driver the route to be followed to the first base camp. The place chosen for the camp was about 20 miles away, well inside the Chihuahua Reserve. Constable Jones arrived first to mark the spot for the truck which was following him. He showed them where he wanted the tent pitched. Before long, Gueshu was driving in the last pigs. Constable Jones told Gueshu that they would start their first patrol early next day on foot, visiting villages in the area, making general routine inquiries. At the first village they visited, they heard a tale of woe. The headman met them and told them that one of the children of the village had been missing since the previous afternoon. The constable told Gueshu to ask the headman where the child was last seen and whether she was alone. Gueshu learned that she was playing in some lands not far from the river, and that they feared that she might have been taken by a crocodile. Gueshu listened carefully and interpreted to the constable, who told him to tell the old man that they would organize a search party with the help of all the men of the neighboring villages. They started by combing the banks of the river near which the child had last been seen. When this yielded no result, they went further afield, keeping close together because of the dense grass and scrub. Gueshu was working his way through some thick grass when he suddenly heard a child crying. Then he soon discovered her, and, delighted with his success, called out to the others that the child was found. Back at the village, the child's mother, her anxiety over, gave the police her heartfelt thanks, and soon a present of food was brought to express their gratitude. Next morning at the base camp, a motorcycle patrol began. It was a cold morning, and the motorcycle wasn't as ready for work as they were. But they were soon on their way and turned on to the main reserve road, which they used as a start for all their patrols. Their first stop was at a store 2 miles away. Constable Jones told Gueshu to explain that he wanted the scales and weights to be brought out onto the veranda to be checked. Then he detailed Gweshu to talk to the local people, to discover whether there was anything they wanted to tell the police about. Gweshu received a friendly greeting. In reply to his questions, one man said that he had no troubles. Another man complained that his life was full of troubles. Why is that? Asked Gweshu. Well, you see, I have 4 wives. Constable Jones was checking the weights to see that they carried the assize mark. Gweshu saw someone coming along the road. I know him. That's Sibabi's accomplice. Got you, my friend. Don't struggle now. You're under arrest for picking pockets in Salisbury railway station 5 months ago. He took the prisoner over to Constable Jones. Well, what's all this about? Sir, I identified this man, who I saw helping his friend Sibabi to pick pockets on Salisbury Station before I joined the police. Detective Sergeant Harry knows all about it, sir. The constable congratulated him on good work, and Gweshu was delighted with his first success.